We have to keep moving!
I can't, my leg.
Lean on me, we're almost there.
Rain lashed the Oryukto breakwater like 1,000 silver blades, turning the concrete slick and treacherous underfoot. Black waves hammered the volcanic rocks below, exploding into white foam that the wind snatched away into the night. At the far end of the pier, beneath the pulsing red beacon of the old lighthouse, Kwan Per-yong stood motionless. His tailored black coat snapped behind him like a broken wing. A thin line of blood already darkened one cuff, evidence of the graze that had ended his last bodyguard minutes earlier. In his right hand, a silenced pistol hung loose, almost casual, but his eyes scanned the shadows with the precision of a predator who knew he was now the prey. The eclipse fracture had come for him at last. 6 figures detached from the darkness, masked, moving in practiced formation, suppressors glinting wet under the stormlight. No words, no hesitation. The lead assassin raised his rifle, finger tightening on the trigger. Then the night answered. A shadow detached from the top of a rusted shipping container and dropped 20 feet in absolute silence. Boots met skull with a wet crunch. The first man crumpled before he could scream. The second turned too late. Her elbow drove into his windpipe like a piston, stealing his breath and his balance in the same instant. Aisha Kane twisted mid-motion, snatching the falling blade from his fingers and hurling it sideways. The third assassin staggered, steel buried to the hilt in his shoulder, rifle clattering useless to the ground. She was already moving toward Tae-ryong. Tall, braided hair plastered to her neck by rain, tactical vest dark with seawater and adrenaline sweat. She closed the distance in 3 strides. Her hand clamped around his wrist, firm, unyielding, and yanked him behind the nearest concrete barrier, just as bullets stitched a line of sparks across the stone where his head had been. "You hired the best," she said, voice low and edged with steel, American accent cutting clean through the gale. "Now stop standing there like you want to die and move." Tae-ryong wrenched his arm free, dark eyes locking onto hers, fury flickering beneath something sharper, hungrier. He was not accustomed to being pulled, not accustomed to anyone who refused to lower their gaze. "I don't require rescue, Kane," he said, words velvet over razor. "I require loyalty." She gave a short, humorless laugh, already shoving him toward the blacked-out SUV waiting at the pier's end, engine growling low. "Then you should have paid for someone who bows. Get in the damn car before I let the sharks finish what they started." Gunfire erupted again, closer now, relentless. She pivoted, body shielding his as they ran, one hand pressing hard against the small of his back, heat bleeding through soaked fabric into skin. He felt it, the solid wall of her, the controlled power coiled in every movement, and for the first time in years, control slipped just enough to let fascination take root. They dove into the vehicle. Tires shrieked against wet concrete. Bullets hammered armored glass like angry hail as the SUV fishtailed into the fog-choked Busan night. Behind them, the red lighthouse beacon swept once more across empty pier, witness to a king dragged from death by the one woman who might be dangerous enough to save him, or destroy him. The private jet touched down at Gimhae International just after midnight, engines whining into silence under a sky heavy with coastal fog. Aisha Kane stepped onto the tarmac without fanfare, no entourage, no welcome party. Just her, a black duffel slung over one shoulder, and the kind of calm that came from knowing death had already tried its best and failed. Customs waved her through after one glance at the diplomatic-level paperwork. She slid into the back of a waiting matte black Genesis G90, the driver saying nothing beyond a curt nod. 30 minutes later, the car climbed the winding private road to Yeongdo's highest point, a sleek glass-and-steel tower that rose like a blade from the hillside, windows reflecting the distant harbor lights in fractured gold. Penthouse level, floor 68. The elevator doors parted directly into the living space. Kwan Tae-ryong waited near the floor-to-ceiling windows, back to her, hands clasped behind him. Black suit, no tie, sleeves rolled to the forearms. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood and gun oil. Two of his men stood at opposite corners, stone-faced, hands near concealed holsters, but Tae-ryong dismissed them with a flick of his fingers. They vanished without sound. He turned slowly, dark eyes, sharp jaw, a faint scar tracing the edge of his left brow. 35 years old, but the weight of legacy made him look older in the dim light. "Ms. Kane," he said, voice low, measured. Korean accent wrapped around English like smoke. "You're late." "Traffic," Aisha replied, dropping her duffel with a soft thud. She didn't move closer. "And I don't do fashionably on time. I do alive." His gaze swept her, braids pulled back into a tight knot, tactical jacket over a fitted black shirt, boots still dusted with airport grit. No makeup, no apology. She met his stare without blinking. He gestured to the low glass table between them. A slim folder waited. Her contract, already signed on his end. She picked it up, flipped pages without sitting. "Double the quoted fee if I survive the first week. Triple if we make it to 30 days. Non-negotiable extraction clause if your people turn on me. And I report only to you. No middlemen, no lieutenants." Tae-yong's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "You've done your homework." "I read the dossier you leaked to lure me here." She closed the folder. "Your father's yacht went up in flames 3 weeks ago. Official story, mechanical failure. Real story, someone planted enough C4 to level a small building. Now your
Uncle Myung-suk is rallying the Shadow Crescent faction. They've already taken out 2 of your enforcers. You're next. You need someone who can't be bribed, threatened, or seduced by clan loyalty. That's me." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint trace of rain on his coat from earlier. "And what makes you think I trust you?" "You don't." Aisha's voice stayed even. "You trust my record. Delta Force, 8 years, 0 failed protections. Last job, got a defecting general out of the Sahel with 3 hit teams on our tail. I'm still breathing. He's not. That's the math you're buying." Silence stretched. Outside, fog pressed against the glass like a living thing. Tae-ryong studied her another beat. Then he reached into his jacket, produced a black Amex, and slid it across the table. "Unlimited. For expenses. Gear. Whatever you need." She didn't touch it. "I'll bill you. Receipts included. I don't like owing anyone." A ghost of amusement crossed his face. "Independent to a fault." "Call it survival instinct." He inclined his head. "Then let's test it." He crossed to a concealed panel, pressed a thumb to the scanner. A section of wall slid open, revealing an armory wall lit in cool blue. Rifles, handguns, blades, body armor. "Choose what you want. We leave for the mountain refuge at dawn." Aisha moved past him, eyes scanning the inventory with professional detachment. She selected a suppressed Glock 19, checked the mag, racked it once. Clean. Smooth. She holstered it at her hip. "Enough for now," she said. "I travel light." Tae-ryong watched her every move. "You think you can protect me better than my own men?" "I think I can see the knife before it's in your back." She turned to face him fully. "Your people are loyal, until they're not. I have no side here. That makes me dangerous to everyone but you." For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or the spark of a challenge accepted. "Then prove it, Kane." Before she could answer, the lights flickered once, then plunged into black. A second later, glass shattered somewhere below. Entry point. Gunfire erupted from the lower floors, muffled but unmistakable. Aisha was already moving, drawing the Glock, body angled to shield Tae-yong instinctively. "Stay behind me," she ordered. He pulled his own pistol, matte black Sig Sauer, from under his jacket. "I don't hide." "Tonight you do." She grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the emergency stairwell access. "Or we both die proving a point." Alarms wailed, red emergency lights pulsed, footsteps thundered up from below, multiple assailants. Aisha kicked the stairwell door open, weapon raised. The first assassin appeared at the landing below, masked, suppressed MP5 raised. She fired twice, center mass. He dropped. Tae-yong moved beside her, covering the opposite angle. Their shoulders brushed, solid, electric in the chaos. "Elevator's compromised," she said. "We go down the hard way." He nodded once, sharp, decisive. They descended fast, her leading, him matching pace. Bullets ricocheted off steel railings. She returned fire with surgical precision, dropping another shadow before it could flank. At sub-level parking, she shoved him towards the armoured SUV waiting in the gloom, the same one from the pier job she'd pulled off hours earlier in her mind's eye simulation. "Drive," she snapped, sliding into the passenger seat as he took the wheel. Engine roared to life, tires screeched. They burst out into the rainy Busan night, headlights cutting fog, pursuit vehicles already giving chase. Aisha glanced at him, jaw tight, hands steady on the wheel, blood from a fresh nick on his cheek mixing with rain through the cracked window. "You still think you don't need saving?" she asked, voice steady over the engine's growl. He shot her a look, dark, intense, alive with something new. "I think," he said, accelerating into the curve, "this is going to be interesting." The city lights blurred past. The eclipse fracture had just claimed its first failed hit of the night, and Aisha Kane had officially started work. The Genesis ate the highway north out of Busan like it was starving, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. Kwon Tae-yong drove with ruthless focus, hands steady at 10 and 2, eyes flicking between mirrors and the black road ahead. Aisha sat shotgun, Glock resting on her thigh, barrel pointed downrange. The rear view showed two blacked-out SUVs trailing at a deliberate distance. His men, not pursuers. Yet. No one spoke for the first hour. The only sounds were wipers slapping rhythmically and the low growl of the engine climbing into the Jirisan foothills. Aisha broke the silence first. "How many routes to this mountain place?" "3 main, 2 back trails only locals know." His voice was calm, almost conversational.
"We're taking the ghost road. No cameras, no tolls." She nodded once. "Smart. But if the Shadow Crescent has a mole, they'll guess the destination eventually. They already have." He glanced at her sidelong. "That's why we're not stopping until dawn." Another 30 minutes passed before the pavement gave way to gravel, then dirt. The car bounced over ruts, headlights catching twisted pines and fog that rolled in thick as smoke. Tae-yong killed the lights, navigating by memory and the faint glow of the dashboard. Aisha didn't question it. She'd done worse in pitch-black Sahel dunes. The villa appeared without warning, a low, modern sprawl of dark timber and smoked glass perched on a ridge, half hidden by evergreens. Solar panels glinted wet on the roof. No visible driveway lights, no perimeter fence that screamed, "Target." Tae-yong parked under a camouflaged carport. 2 of his men materialized from the trees, silent, rifles slung low. They exchanged quick words in Korean. He dismissed them to perimeter patrol. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and faint wood smoke. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a steep drop into mist-filled valleys. Minimalist furniture, low black leather sofas, a single long table of polished walnut, a wall of screens that stayed dark for now. Aisha did a sweep, habit, checked corners, exits, sightlines. Taeyong watched without comment. Clear, she said finally, holstering the Glock. But the glass is a liability. Bulletproof? Level 8. Stops .50 caliber AP. He moved to a concealed bar, poured 2 fingers of single malt into cut crystal glasses, offered her one. She took it, but didn't drink. Your men don't like me. They don't have to. He sipped, eyes on her over the rim. They follow orders. You give better ones than most of them ever will. Aisha set the glass down, untouched. Flattery doesn't buy loyalty from me. Not flattery. Observation. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You move like someone who's lost people and learned from it. Her jaw tightened, just a fraction. Don't psychoanalyze the help. He didn't push. Instead, he gestured down the hall. Your room is second door. Shower. Change. We brief at 0400. She nodded, grabbed her duffel, and disappeared. The villa was quiet after that. Too quiet. At 0230, the storm hit peak fury. Wind howled against the glass. Lightning turned the fog electric white for split seconds. Then everything went dark. No hum of appliances, no soft glow from security panels. Total blackout. Aisha was out of bed in seconds, boots on, Glock in hand, moving silent toward the hall. She met Taeyong at the corner, barefoot, black shirt half-buttoned, cig already drawn. Generator? She whispered. 3-minute failover. It's been 4. They moved as one toward the utility room at the back. No footsteps followed. His men were either on patrol outside or... A low metallic click echoed from the main living area. Someone was inside. Aisha signaled, flank left. He nodded, slipping right. She crept along the wall, breath even, pulse steady. Lightning flashed, silhouetting a figure near the walnut table. Male, hood up, moving toward the war room door. She closed distance in 3 strides, arm locking around his throat from behind, Glock pressed to his temple. Move and you're done, she hissed. The man froze. Then Taeyong was there, flipping on a tactical flashlight, beam pinning the intruder's face. One of his own lieutenants, Choi Min-jae. Young, ambitious, eyes wide with panic. Boss, Choi choked. Taeyong's voice was ice. Explain. Power cut. I came to check the backup. Aisha didn't loosen her hold. You came alone. No radio check. No signal to the perimeter team. Choi swallowed. I didn't want to wake anyone. Lightning flashed again. In that instant, Aisha saw it. The faint outline of a burner phone in his pocket, screen still glowing from a recent message. She yanked it free before he could react. Unlocked, idiot hadn't set a passcode. Last text, sent 3 minutes ago. Target location confirmed. Blackout initiated. Waiting for your go. She showed the screen to Taeyong. His face didn't change, but the air around him seemed to darken. Outside, he said quietly. Now. They dragged Choi to the covered porch. Rain hammered the roof like gunfire. Taeyong faced him, flashlight beams steady on his chest. Who gave the order? Choi's lips trembled. Myung-suk promised me lieutenant seat when it's over. Aisha stepped forward. How many more inside the house? Just me. The blackout was remote. Hacked the grid tie-in. Taeyong exhaled once, slow, controlled. Then he nodded to Aisha. She understood. No execution in front of her. Not yet. Zip tie him to the generator. Shed, she said. We'll deal with him at dawn. Taeyong did it himself, efficient, emotionless. When he returned, rain dripping from his hair, shirt clinging to his frame, the power flickered back on. Dim red emergency lights first, then full warm glow. They stood in the hallway, inches apart, adrenaline still singing in their veins. You okay? She asked, quiet, professional. He looked at her then, really looked. Rain-streaked face, braids escaping their knot, eyes steady despite the chaos. I've had worse nights, he said, but his voice carried something new. Not gratitude, Not yet. Something closer to recognition. You didn't hesitate, he added. Not once. I don't get paid to hesitate. A beat of silence. The storm raged on outside, but inside the air felt thicker, warmer. He stepped closer, just enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. Get some rest, Kane. Dawn comes fast. She held his gaze a second longer than necessary. You too. Try not to get yourself killed before I wake up. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. No promises. He turned down the hall. She watched him go, shoulders tense, steps measured, then retreated to her room. The door clicked shut, but neither of them slept. Outside, the fog thickened. Inside, something else had begun to uncoil. Slow, inevitable, dangerous. Dawn came slow and gray over the Jirisan Ridge, fog clinging to the pines like smoke from a dying fire. Inside the villa, the blackout had been restored to full power by 0500, generator humming steady, security feeds flickering back online. Choi Min-jae remained zip-tied to a support beam in the generator shed, gagged and silent under guard. No one had spoken of what would happen to him yet. The question hung like humidity in the air. Aisha found Tae-young in the lower-level gym at 0630. The space was sparse but professional, padded mats covering most of the floor, a heavy bag suspended from steel beams, racks of kettlebells and medicine balls along one wall. No mirrors, probably intentional. No distractions. He was already there, barefoot in black compression shorts and a sleeveless training shirt, sweat already beating at his temples. He shadowboxed in slow, deliberate arcs, each punch cutting clean air, footwork precise. Controlled fury. Aisha leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You called this a briefing. He didn't stop moving. It is. A jab cross-hook combination snapped out. You said my men can't see the knife coming. Prove I'm not one of them. She pushed off the frame, stepping onto the mat. You want to spar? I want to know if you're as good as the dossier claims. He turned to face her fully, dropping his hands. And if I can trust my life to someone who thinks she's better than everyone in the room. Aisha studied him. Broad shoulders, lean muscle earned from necessity rather than vanity, the faint scar on his brow catching the overhead light. She unzipped her tactical jacket, let it drop to the edge of the mat. Underneath, fitted black tank, sports bra, leggings. No weapons, just her. Rules? She asked. No guns, no blades. First to submission or tap. No cheap shots. She nodded once. And when I pin you, you stop pretending you don't need protection. His mouth curved, sharp, challenging. And when I put you down, you stop giving orders like you own the place. They circled, slow at first, testing range. He moved like water over stone, fluid, deceptive. She matched him step for step, lower center of gravity giving her balance he couldn't easily disrupt. He struck first, faint left, real jab right. She slipped it, countered with a low kick to his lead leg. He checked it, stepped in close. Too close. She hooked an arm around his waist, pivoted, and threw him over her hip in a clean Ippon Seonage. He hit the mat hard, breath exploding out. Before he could roll, she dropped with him, knee on his chest, wrist pinned above his head, body weight locking him down. 2 seconds, maybe 3. She leaned in, face inches from his. Tap. His chest rose and fell beneath her. Sweat slicked the space between them. His free hand came up, not to strike, but to grip her forearm. Not pushing away. Holding. Not yet, he murmured. He bridged, hips exploding upward, twisting to reverse the position. She anticipated, rolled with the momentum, ending up mounted on his back as he scrambled to all fours. She hooked one arm under his chin, the other locking the rear naked choke. Legs wrapped around his waist like steel cable. He fought it, strong, stubborn, clawing at her forearm, bucking to throw her off. She tightened, his face flushed. Veins stood out at his neck. Then, slowly, he tapped her wrist twice. She released instantly, rolling off. Both stayed on the mat a beat, breathing hard. The room smelled of rubber, sweat, and ozone from the storm still lingering outside. Aisha sat up first, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. Lesson 1. Ego gets you choked out. Taeryong pushed to a seated position, rubbing his throat. No anger in his eyes. Something else. Respect, edged with heat. Lesson 2. Never underestimate the student. He stood, offered her a hand. She took it. Their palms met, calloused, warm, lingering a half-second longer than necessary before releasing. She stepped back, creating space. You're strong, fast, but predictable. You fight like someone who's always had backup. I fight like someone who never does. He nodded slowly. Teach me. She raised a brow. You sure? I don't go easy. I don't want easy. He moved to the center of the mat again. They went 3 more rounds. Each time she dismantled his attacks, showing him angles, leverage points, how to read intent before the move happened. He learned fast. Too fast. By the 4th round, he slipped her hip throw, countered with a leg sweep that dropped her to her back. He followed her down, not pinning, just hovering above, forearms braced on either side of her head. Their faces were close enough that she could count the flecks of gold in his dark irises. Sweat dripped from his jaw onto her collarbone. She didn't push him off. Didn't need to. Her legs were already hooked around his waist, ready to flip if he tried anything stupid. But he didn't. He just looked at her. Really looked. Breathing ragged, pulse visible at his throat. You always this stubborn? He asked, voice low. Only when someone thinks they can handle me. A beat. The air between them thickened, charged like the moment before lightning. Then he rolled off, offering his hand again. This time, when she took it, he pulled her up slowly, bodies brushing as she rose, chest to chest for a heartbeat. Neither stepped back immediately. She broke first. We're done for now. You've got the basics. Work on not telegraphing your bridges. He nodded, but his gaze lingered on her mouth, then back to her eyes. You fight like you've got nothing to lose. I fight like I've already lost everything once. She picked up her jacket, slung it over her shoulder. That's the difference. She headed for the door. Kane. She paused, half-turned. Thank you, he said, quiet, sincere, for not holding back. She gave a small, almost smile. Don't thank me yet. The real test isn't on the mat. She left him standing there, sweat cooling, chest still rising fast, staring after her like a man who'd just discovered a new kind of danger, and liked it. The ambush came at dusk, just as the fog began to thin into twilight haze along the Jirisan Ridge. They had ventured out only once since dawn, short recon to check the back trail for signs of movement. Taeryong insisted on going himself. Aisha didn't argue. Better to have him in sight than loose in the villa with wounded pride. They moved light, suppressed pistols, comms earpieces, no backup. His men stayed on perimeter rotation. The attackers waited at the narrow switchback, 4 shadows in ghillie suits blending with the underbrush. No warning, just the soft crack of suppressed rounds splitting pine bark. Aisha shoved Taeryong down first, instinct, not thought. They rolled behind a fallen log as bullets chewed wood into splinters. She returned fire, 2 quick doubles, dropping one shooter mid-reload. Taeryong snapped off 3 rounds from cover, catching another in the leg. The remaining 2 melted back into the trees, retreating fast, but not before one lucky shot found its mark. Taeryong hissed, sharp, involuntary, clutching his left side. Blood seeped dark through his black jacket, spreading fast. Move, Aisha ordered, hauling him up by the armpit. Back to the villa, now. They covered the distance in a low, painful half-run, her supporting most of his weight without breaking stride. His breathing came ragged by the time they burst through the side door. She kicked it shut, threw the deadbolt, and dragged him down the hall to the master bath. Largest space, best light, closest to the med kit she'd stashed. Sit, she said, easing him onto the edge of the marble vanity. He complied, gritting teeth, peeling off the soaked jacket and shirt in one motion. The wound was ugly, through and through graze along his ribs, shallow enough to miss organs, but deep enough to bleed like hell, skin torn ragged by the round's edge. Aisha didn't flinch. She snapped on nitrile gloves from the kit, flooded the wound with saline, then pressed sterile gauze hard enough to make him curse under his breath. "Hold still," she said. "This needs stitches. No time for a hospital run." He watched her work, eyes dark, unblinking. "You've done this before. More times than I count." She threaded the curved needle with black suture, alcohol wipe sterilizing her hands again. "Hold the light." He took the tactical flashlight from her, angling it steady despite the tremor in his arm. She started stitching, quick, even bites, no hesitation. Each pull of thread drew a low sound from his throat, but he didn't move. The bathroom was quiet except for their breathing and the faint drip of the faucet. 3:17 a.m. by the wall clock. Outside, wind rattled the pines, but the world felt small, contained in this bright circle of light and blood. Halfway through, he spoke. "Why you?" She didn't look up. "Why me what?" "Why I chose you." Another stitch. He exhaled through his nose. "I had options. Korean specialists, ex-special forces locals, people who know the game here. I picked the outsider, the one who doesn't speak the language, doesn't owe anyone favors." She tied off the first knot, cut the thread. "You already know why." "Say it." She met his eyes then, steady, unflinching. "Because I'm the only one who can look at you and not see the boss. I see the target. And I see the man who's bleeding because he still thinks he has to prove he doesn't need anyone." Silence stretched. Her fingers worked on, closing the wound. He swallowed once. "My uncle raised me after my father took over the Eclipse. Taught me the code. Blood first, loyalty second, weakness never. When the yacht went down, I thought maybe the code failed him. Maybe it was failing me." Aisha paused, needle hovering, then resumed. "It didn't fail him. It failed the people who followed it blindly." He studied her face in the harsh light, braids framing sharp cheekbones, jaw set in concentration, faint scar along her own collarbone visible above the tank top collar. "What happened to your team?" he asked quietly. "In the Sahel." She tied the final stitch, tight, clean. Then she set the tools aside, peeled off the gloves, and met his gaze again. "Extraction op. High-value asset. 3 hit teams converged, better intel than we had. We fought our way out for 2 days. Lost comms, lost air support, lost everyone but me and the principal." She looked down at the blood on her hands, then back at him. "I got him across the border. Buried the rest in shallow sand so the wind wouldn't take them before recovery could." Tae-ryong reached out, slow, fingers brushing the back of her wrist, not grabbing, just contact. Warm skin on warm skin. "You carried the weight alone." "Someone had to." Her voice stayed even, but something cracked behind it, just a hairline fracture. "I don't do teams anymore. Easier that way." He didn't pull away. His thumb traced a slow circle over her pulse point, barely there, but enough to send heat racing up her arm. "You're doing one now," he said. She didn't answer, just held his gaze, long enough that the air thickened, heavy with unsaid things. Then she stepped back, breaking contact first, grabbing fresh gauze and tape. "Bandage stays dry. No heavy lifting. No more solo recon." She pressed the dressing over the stitches, smoothing it with careful pressure. Her palm lingered over his ribs a second too long, feeling the steady thump of his heart beneath. He caught her hand before she could pull away, held it there, flat against his skin. "Aisha." First time he'd used her name. Not Kane, not Ms. Kane. Just Aisha. Soft, almost reverent. She didn't flinch, but her breath hitched, just once. "Don't," she said quietly. "Not while you're bleeding." "I'm not bleeding anymore." His voice was low, rough. "Thanks to you." She searched his face, looking for the play, the manipulation. Found none. Only raw honesty, edged with something deeper. Hunger, gratitude, want. She exhaled slowly. Get some rest. We talk strategy at dawn. He released her hand, reluctant. Dawn. She turned for the door. Aisha. She paused back to him. Thank you, he said again, softer this time. For seeing the man. She didn't turn around, just nodded once, small, almost imperceptible, then slipped out into the dark hallway. Behind her, Tae-ryong stayed seated on the vanity, shirtless, bandaged, staring at the empty doorway. The stitches pulled with every breath. But the real ache was somewhere deeper, and it had nothing to do with the wound. The villa's war room sat buried beneath the main floor, accessed through a hidden panel behind the walnut table. Concrete walls lined with soundproofing, a single long LED-lit table, and a wall of screens that now glowed soft blue. No windows, no natural light. Just the hum of servers and the faint scent of coffee gone cold. It was 0447 when Aisha descended the narrow stairs, fresh from a 3-hour sleep that felt like 5 minutes. She carried 2 steaming mugs, black coffee for her, the same for him, no sugar. Tae-ryong was already there, hunched over a spread of printed maps and encrypted tablets, fresh bandage visible beneath his open collar. He hadn't slept. The shadows under his eyes proved it. He looked up as she entered. No greeting, just a nod toward the chair opposite him. She set his mug down, took her seat, and scanned the display. Red markers dotted Busan's port, districts, warehouses, yacht slips, underground gambling dens. Green for known Eclipse assets. Yellow for contested. A jagged purple line cut through the center. Shadow Crescent territory claimed in the last 48 hours. Update? She asked. Myung-sok moved faster than expected. Tae-ryong tapped a tablet. A grainy still from a dockside camera filled one screen. His uncle, silver-haired and sharp-suited, stepping off a private launch at Gamcheon's hidden pier. Timestamp, 200 last night. He's consolidating, taking warehouses we used for transshipment, killing anyone who won't flip. Aisha sipped her coffee, hot, bitter, grounding. How many loyalists left in the inner circle? 6 I'd trust with my life. Maybe 3 more who haven't shown their hand. He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. Choi was the first crack. Won't be the last. She studied the map another moment, then pushed a marker forward. Yeongdo Tower, their original penthouse. He'll hit there again. Thinks we're still using it as fallback. We let him waste resources on an empty building. Tae-ryong's eyes flicked to her. You want to bait him? I want him overextended. She traced a line south along the coast. We feed false intel through a compromised channel. Make it look like you're relocating to Huksum. He sends a team. We thin them out on open water. Buy time to root out the next mole. He considered it, then nodded once. Risky, but clean. They worked in silence after that, cross-referencing manifests, tracing burner phone pings, marking probable safe houses. Hours slipped by. Coffee turned to soju pulled from a locked drawer when the caffeine stopped cutting through the fatigue. The bottle passed between them without ceremony. Small pours, no toasts. Around 0730, Tae-ryong leaned back, stretching his arms overhead. The motion pulled at his stitches. He winced, but hit it fast. Aisha noticed. Pain? Manageable. He rolled his shoulder anyway. You stitched tight. Had to. She poured another finger of soju into his glass, then hers. You're no good to anyone if you bleed out on day 4. He took the glass, fingers brushing hers. Deliberate this time. Lingering. You're good at this. Stitching or strategy? Both. His voice dropped lower. And at making me question everything I thought I knew about control. She held his gaze across the table. The LED light cast cool shadows along his cheekbones, highlighting the scar above his brow. Control's an illusion when you're bleeding, or when someone's willing to die for you. He exhaled slowly. My father built the Eclipse on fear and blood oaths. My uncle wants to keep it that way. I used to think that was the only path. And now? Now. He set the glass down, untouched. Now I'm looking at a woman who lost her entire team and still came back swinging, who stitched me up at 3 a.m. without asking for thanks, who pins me to a mat and makes me tap like a rookie. And I'm wondering if maybe the code I inherited is the thing holding me back. Aisha leaned forward, elbows on the table, close enough that their faces were framed in the same blue glow. The code didn't kill your father. People did. People who twisted it for power. He studied her. Really studied. You don't trust easily. Neither do you. A beat. The air between them felt thinner, warmer. I trust you, he said quietly, more than I've trusted anyone in years. She didn't look away. Then stop trying to prove you don't need me. He reached across the table, slow, fingers grazing the edge of her hand where it rested near the soju bottle. Not grabbing, just touching. Skin on skin. Electric. I'm trying to prove I deserve you, he murmured. Her breath caught, just once. She didn't pull away. Their faces drifted closer, close enough to feel each other's heat, to see the flecks of exhaustion and want in his eyes. Her lips parted slightly. His gaze dropped to her mouth. The moment stretched, taut, suspended. Then every screen in the room flashed red. Incoming encrypted burst transmission. Urgent priority. A voice crackled through the speakers, one of his perimeter men, breathless. Boss, movement on the lower trail. 3 vehicles, armed. They're coming up fast. Taeryong's hand withdrew. The spell shattered. Aisha was already standing, chair scraping back. How long? 8 minutes, maybe less. She looked at him, eyes sharp, professional again. Gear up. We move now. He rose, wincing once at the pull on his side, but nodding. Hooksom bait just got real. They moved together, fluid, synchronized, toward the armory alcove off the war room. As they strapped on vests and checked mags, their shoulders brushed. Neither acknowledged it, but the almost kiss hung between them like smoke, unresolved, burning low. Dawn had broken outside. The war hadn't waited. The lower trail was a narrow dirt scar cut into the mountainside, barely wide enough for one vehicle, flanked by dense pine and rock outcrops that made perfect ambush points. Taeryong and Aisha reached the first overlook just as the 3 black vans rounded the final hairpin. Headlights bounced wild in the dusk. 3 vehicles, 8 to 10 bodies, Aisha said, crouched behind a boulder, night vision monocular pressed to her eye. They're not being subtle. Means they think we're pinned. Taeryong knelt beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, his cig already drawn. They know the villa layout. They'll split. 1 team frontal, 1 flanks through the trees, 1 covers the escape route. She lowered the monocular. We hit the flankers first. Quiet. Thin their numbers before the main push. He met her eyes, dark, steady. You take left ridge, I'll take right. Meet at the choke point halfway down. No. She shook her head once. We stay together. You're still bleeding under that bandage. I'm not leaving you solo. A flicker crossed his face, annoyance, then something softer. You think I can't handle myself? I think you're the principal. My job is keeping you vertical. She checked her suppressor, screwed it on with a soft click. We move as one, no heroics. He exhaled through his nose, half laugh, half surrender. Fine. Lead. They ghosted down the ridge together, silent footfalls on pine needles, bodies low. The flank team was already spreading, 4 men in dark tactical gear, moving upslope with suppressed carbines. Aisha signaled, 2 on the left, 2 right. She took point, slipping behind the nearest tree, waiting for the rearmost man to pass. 1 fluid step, arm around his throat, blade to the kidney, not stabbing, just pressing enough to freeze him. She dragged him backward into the underbrush, knee in his spine, hand clamping his mouth. He went limp in seconds, pressure point choke, out cold. Taeyong mirrored her on the opposite side, faster than she expected. His target dropped without a sound, neck snapped clean. No hesitation, no remorse. They met eyes across the narrow gap, a shared nod. 2 down. The remaining pair sensed something, froze, weapons up. Aisha moved first, double-tap suppressed rounds into the closest one's chest. He crumpled. Taeyong finished the last with a single headshot, clean, clinical. Silence returned, thick, ringing. They dragged the bodies deeper into the brush, stripping comms and weapons. Aisha checked one of the earpieces, still active. Flank team, report. Flank team, status. She keyed the mic, mimicking the clipped Korean accent she'd heard from his men. Clear, moving up. A pause. Then, copy, main team advancing, breach in 2. She killed the comm, looked at Taeyong. They're coming hard now. We need to draw them into the open. He nodded. Back to the villa. Make them think we're barricaded inside. They sprinted upslope, legs burning, breath fogging in the cold air. Halfway, Taeyong stumbled, hand pressing his side. Blood seeped fresh through the bandage. Aisha caught his arm. Stop. I'm fine. You're not. She pulled him behind a rock cluster, yanking up his shirt. The stitches had torn, half the wound reopened, blood running down his ribs. Damn it, she muttered, ripping a trauma patch from her vest, pressing it hard. He hissed. Keep moving, he growled. Not like this. She tore a strip from her sleeve, tied it tight around his torso, field compression. Her hands were steady, but close, fingers brushing bare skin, heat cutting through the chill. He caught her wrist, held it there. Aisha. She looked up, faces inches apart, breaths mingling in the dark. I'm slowing you down, he said quietly. Leave me. Finish them. No. Her voice was steel. I don't leave people behind anymore. His thumb traced her pulse, slow, deliberate. Then don't leave me. The words landed heavier than any bullet. She leaned in, just a fraction, forehead almost touching his. Then stop bleeding on me and fight. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Yes, ma'am. They moved again, slower now, but together. Reached the villa's rear approach as the main team breached the front gate, flashbangs popping, gunfire chewing the doorframe. Aisha keyed her own comm to his remaining perimeter men. Fall back to secondary positions, let them enter, we hit from behind. The fight turned brutal, close quarters, room to room. Taeyong and Aisha flanked from the service corridor, dropping 2 more intruders before they reached the living area. Chaos. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, muzzle flashes lighting the dark like strobes. One of the attackers, big, scarred, clearly the team lead, spotted Taeyong across the room, raised his weapon. Aisha moved without thought, shoving Taeyong aside, taking the round meant for him. It grazed her upper arm, hot line of fire tearing through jacket and skin. She didn't stop, returned fire, double tap to center mass. The man dropped. The last 2 surrendered, hands up, weapons kicked away. Silence crashed in. Aisha leaned against the wall, breathing hard, blood dripping from her sleeve onto the floor. Taeyong was at her side in seconds, ripping his own shirt tail, pressing it to her wound. Sit, he ordered, voice rough. She slid down the wall. He knelt in front of her, hands steady despite the tremor in them, tying off the makeshift bandage. You took that from me, he said, not a question. Instinct. He finished the knot, then cupped her face, gentle, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. No more instincts. No more taking bullets. She searched his eyes, fury, fear, something raw and unguarded. Then stop making me. He exhaled, shaky. Aisha. First name again, softer, like a confession. She reached up, fingers threading into his hair at the nape, pulling him closer. Their foreheads met. Sweat, blood, rain from earlier, all mixing. I'm not losing another one, she whispered. You won't. His voice cracked, just once. Not me. The perimeter men cleared the last room, called all clear. Outside, engines faded as the last vehicles retreated. Inside, they stayed like that, kneeling on blood-smeared floor, breathing each other's air. He pulled back enough to look at her. "We need to get you stitched." "Later." She didn't let go. "Right now. Just stay here." He nodded, once, slow. Then he leaned in, slow enough she could stop him. She didn't. Their lips met, soft at first, tentative, then deeper, desperate. Adrenaline and fear and everything unsaid pouring out in heat and pressure. His hand slid to the back of his neck, holding her like she might vanish. Hers gripped his shirt, anchoring him. When they broke apart, gasping, the war still raged outside. But inside, something had shifted irrevocably. He rested his forehead against hers again. "We finish this. Together." "Together," she echoed. And for the first time since the Sahel, she believed it might be possible. The speedboat sliced through the South Sea at first light, engines throttled low to avoid radar pings. Hooksum, Black Isle, rose from the mist like a jagged tooth. Steep cliffs of dark basalt, a single narrow cove, and the isolated compound perched on the highest ridge. No roads, no neighbors, only the wind and the waves for company. Aisha steered from the helm, salt spray stinging her face, fresh bandage wrapped tight around her grazed arm. Tae-ryung stood beside her, vest zipped over the stitched wound at his ribs, eyes scanning the horizon. The last of his loyal perimeter men had stayed behind on the mainland to hold decoy positions. This was it, the final hideout. No more running, no more half measures. They beached the boat in the cove, dragged it under camouflage netting, and climbed the steep stone steps carved into the cliff. The compound was old military, concrete bunkers retrofitted with modern security, blast doors, solar arrays, a single helipad now empty. Inside, the main room smelled of sea damp and gun oil. A long table held maps, encrypted drives, and the last cache of weapons. Tae-ryung locked the outer door behind them. The silence was immediate, profound. Just the distant crash of surf and their breathing. He turned to her. "My uncle will come here. He knows this place. It was my father's private retreat. He'll assume I'm desperate, cornered." Aisha set her rifle on the table, checked the mag. "Then we make him pay for the assumption." They spent the morning fortifying, tripwires at the approaches, motion sensors on the cliffs, claymores angled at the only viable landing zone. Work was wordless, efficient, synchronized. But every time their hands brushed passing gear or their eyes met across the room, the air tightened. By afternoon, the fracture reached its boiling point. An encrypted sat phone buzzed on the table. Tae-ryung answered on speaker. Myung-suk's voice, smooth, paternal, edged with steel, filled the room. "Nephew, you've run far enough. Bring the woman. Surrender the codes to the offshore accounts. I'll make it quick, for old time's sake." Tae-ryung's jaw clenched. "You killed him. My father. You planted the charges on the yacht yourself." A low chuckle. He was weak, clinging to old ways while the world changed. The eclipse needs new blood, not sentiment. "You want the accounts? Come take them." The line went dead. Aisha looked at him. "How long?" "Tonight. He'll hit at dusk. Low light, high tide for boats." She nodded. "Then we end it." They moved to the bunker's observation deck, glassed in, bulletproof, overlooking the cove. Sunset bled red across the water. Tae-ryung stood close behind her, not touching, but near enough she felt his heat. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about what comes after." She kept her eyes on the horizon. "If we survive. When we survive." His voice was low, certain. "The eclipse is dying. Myung-suk's right about one thing. The old code is poison. Blood oaths, fear, endless cycles of revenge. I've spent my life protecting something that eats its own." Aisha turned then, facing him fully. "So what do you want instead?" He searched her face. "Something real. Something I don't have to kill to keep." His hand lifted, slow, fingers tracing the line of her jaw. Someone I don't have to control. Her breath caught. You're offering me a future in the middle of a war? I'm offering you the truth. I don't want to rebuild the eclipse. I want to burn the worst parts and walk away. With you. If you'll have me. She studied him, scarred brow, dark eyes raw with something she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Not weakness. Surrender. I don't do half measures either, she said. If I stay, it's all in. No empires, no shadows. Just us. Equals. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Equals. The word hung between them. Then he kissed her. Slow this time. No adrenaline rush. No desperation. Just deliberate heat, lips claiming hers like a promise. She rose on her toes, hands sliding to his shoulders, then into his hair. His arms wrapped her waist, careful of wounds, pulling her flush against him. Bodies pressed tight in the dimming light, hearts hammering in sync. He broke the kiss first, forehead to hers, breathing ragged. I've never let anyone this close. I know. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. That's why it matters. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until the first engine growl echoed from the cove below. Boats. Multiple. Closing fast. Aisha pulled back, eyes sharp again. They're here. Tae-ryung nodded, once, decisive. Then we finish it. Together. She grabbed her rifle. He took his. They moved to positions, her on the high deck with Overwatch, him at the choke point below. As shadows poured from the boats, Myung-suk's elite, black-clad and armed Aisha sighted down her scope. Tae-ryung's voice came soft over comms. Aisha. Yeah? Whatever happens, thank you for seeing me. She smiled, small, fierce. Save the thanks. We're walking out of here. Gunfire cracked below. The reckoning began. But in the heart of the storm, something unbreakable had already been forged. Dusk bled into night over Hooksum's Cove, turning the sea ink black and the basalt cliffs into shadowed sentinels. Myung-suk's force came in 3 fast boats, silent engines, black hulls cutting low wakes. 20 men disembarked, elite contractors, not the usual Eclipse muscle. They moved with purpose, suppressed rifles up, night vision goggles glowing green in the gloom. No hesitation, no mercy. This was an execution, not a negotiation. Aisha watched from the observation deck through her scope, crosshairs steady on the lead boat's ramp. Tae-ryung waited at the choke point below, a narrow stone bridge spanning a deep ravine that funneled attackers toward the compound's only viable approach. Her voice came soft over comms. They're splitting. 10 frontal, 5 each flank. Claymores ready? Primed, he replied. Wait for my signal. She exhaled slow. Copy. The frontal team hit the bridge first, boots pounding stone. Tae-ryung triggered the first claymore. A deafening crack split the night. Shrapnel tore through the lead ranks. 4 down instantly. Screams echoed off the cliffs. The flanks reacted, fanning wider, trying to climb the ravine walls. Aisha picked them off methodically, one headshot, then another. Bodies tumbled into the dark surf below. Myung-suk's voice crackled over an open channel, calm, almost amused. Impressive, nephew. But numbers still favor me. Surrender the woman. She's the only thing keeping you alive. Tae-ryung keyed his mic. She's the reason I'm still breathing, and the reason you're about to lose everything. Aisha shifted position, moving to the secondary deck for better angle. She caught movement. Myung-suk himself stepping onto the beach, silver hair catching moonlight, flanked by 2 bodyguards. Arrogant. Exposed. She lined up the shot, finger on the trigger. Then Tae-ryung's voice, urgent. Aisha, hold. He's mine. She lowered the rifle a fraction. You sure? I need to end this myself. She exhaled. Then do it fast. They're regrouping. Taeyong moved, fast, silent, down the inner path that paralleled the bridge. He emerged at the ravine's edge just as Myung-suk reached the bridge's far side. The older man stopped, smiled thinly. You always were sentimental, Myung-suk said. That's why you'll die tonight. Taeyong stepped fully into view, pistol raised, no cover. This ends here. No more blood for the eclipse. No more shadows. Myung-suk laughed, short, cold. You think you can walk away? The accounts, the roots, the fear, it's all mine now. Taeyong's voice never wavered. Then take it, but you won't take her, and you won't take me. He fired, once, center mass. Myung-suk staggered, hand pressing his chest. Surprise flashed across his face. Then nothing. He crumpled to the stone. The remaining men froze, leaderless, outnumbered by the sudden silence. Aisha's voice over comms. They're breaking. Boats retreating. Taeyong didn't move, just stood over the body, chest rising slow, then turned and walked back up the path. She met him at the compound door, rifle slung, face streaked with sweat and gunpowder residue. He stopped inches from her. It's over. She searched his eyes, searching for regret, for fracture. Found only quiet resolve. The fracture? She asked. Dead with him. He reached up, slow, cupping her cheek. I sent the kill codes to the offshore accounts an hour ago. Frozen. Unrecoverable. The worst parts of the eclipse die tonight. She exhaled, long, shaky. And the rest? I'll sell what's clean. Legitimate shipping. Gambling licenses. No more smuggling. No more blood. His thumb traced her jaw. A new start. If you'll build it with me. Aisha studied him, scarred, exhausted, alive. Equals? Equals. He leaned closer. Partner. Not protector. Not principal. Just us. She closed the distance, kissing him fierce and sure. Hands fisting in his vest, pulling him against her. His arms wrapped her tight, careful of wounds, but desperate in every other way. Salt, smoke, sweat, all of it mixing in the heat between them. When they broke apart, foreheads pressed, breaths ragged, the night felt different, lighter. I'm not good at normal, she whispered. Neither am I. He smiled, small, real. But I'm willing to learn. With you. She nodded once, decisive. Then the contract's new terms. No more running. No more empires. Just this. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. A seal. Behind them, the sea whispered against the cliffs. The boats were gone. The bodies would be claimed by tide or scavengers. The eclipse fracture was finished. They stepped inside together, door sealing behind them. Dawn would come soon. And for the first time, neither feared what it would bring.